Hey, welcome back to the Left, Right, and Center show. I'm Tim. Oh, somewhere around here's Nate. The other guy's Chris. Today we're going to talk about a couple things. The two big topics we want to cover are the $15 minimum wage and the vaccine rollout and how we talked about a little bit last week, but Trump's rollout plan versus Biden's, how they differ, one better than the other, that kind of thing. And then obviously start off with some news and memes. So I guess the first big one, is anyone rich after today?
I'm $6 richer. I threw in $50.
Bitcoin.
The Bitcoin? Yeah, Bitcoin has lost my attention.
I think Bitcoin's out.
It's all about the short squeezes. Got to do the short squeezes. If you haven't heard about the GameStop craze, there's a few other stocks as well. That's what we're referring to. It blew up. So GameStop a month ago in December, I believe, was trading at around somewhere between $18 and $20, and today it was trading up in the 350s. And sometimes that happens, right? Especially with biotechs. Like if you look earlier in the year, the companies that were coming out and saying, "Hey, we're developing a COVID vaccine."
But this is artificial.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's the point I was going to make was those companies are introducing themselves to a market that has a potential to grow the company's bottom line, to increase profit. I shouldn't say nothing. Not a lot changed for GameStop. They did get a big investor. The CEO of Chewy.com came in, put a bunch of money in, is going to try and convert it more from a brick and mortar to an online store.
Trying to like Steam.
I don't know what they're going to do because GameStop doesn't really dabble in PC games. PC games left hard copies years ago, and now the console systems, the new ones, they're cheaper if you buy them without a CD drive, right?
Right, everybody just downloads it anyways. I can't remember the last time when I used a physical CD.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like the only person that still uses physical stuff. I like having the cases. It's like nice to have.
Grandpa. Jeez. I remember back when you had to get up to change the television station.
You guys don't do that anymore?
But so what happened with GameStop, just to give it a quick rundown, is everybody, a lot of the investors, they saw that this business model's failing, right? And for years, their income's been decreasing. They've been a increasingly failing business. Is my camera messing up?
No, you look great. You look handsome.
Let's see if that does it. Did that fix it? Okay, sorry about that. So GameStop's been failing. So a lot of investors have shorted the company, and what that means is they're betting for it to go down. And the way that works is, let's say I own one share of GameStop, and Nate, you think that it's going to go down. You come to me and say, "Hey, Tim, I'll give you X amount of money to let me borrow your share." And I say, "Great, free money. Here's my share. You're going to give it back anyway, so it's just a loan, right?" So I give you my share. You then go and sell it on the market. And then the price goes down. And then you rebuy it from the market at a cheaper price and give it back to me, and you made profit, right?
Interesting.
So that's how short selling works. So what happened with GameStop is there were more shares shorted than there were actual shares of the company.
Which, I mean, to be fair, when was the last time anybody walked into a GameStop, right? Without just like going in there being like, "Oh, I remember this place."
Lot of people during Christmas, their sales picked up pretty good during Christmas. So what must have happened with GameStop is I have a share, I let you borrow it, you sell it to the market, I go back out and buy it and then lend it to somebody else, right? So more people borrowed and sold these shares and owed shares back to somebody than actual shares existed. And so some smart brains out there got together and said, "Hey, these people that borrowed the shares have to buy them back." Because normally it's not me loaning you one, it's a bank loaning you one. And there's rules, like you have to have X amount of money in your account compared to the amount you owe me to make sure I'm going to get my money back, right? So if the price goes up too high, you don't have enough money to cover what you borrowed. You either have to immediately buy the stock or put more money in your account to cover that, right? So these people drive the price up, and all these people that are short have to buy the stock at a high price, which drives it up higher. That's called a short squeeze, and that's what they were trying to do. But what the people this was happening to were looking at this, and they're like, "Look, I get it. We're getting short squeezed, but the company still sucks." So they would get that stock and re-short it. So it was just getting re-shorted over and over. And so the short position percentage being at like 130% has been that way through this entire thing. And the thought is, in my opinion, correct, that the people that are shorting it are like, look, I'm shorting it at $300 because I think it's a shit company, and I was going to short it at $5. Like, right? So the thought's correct, but the problem is there's a mob out there that is, and I say mob is in meaning a lot of people, not a negative derogatory term.
No, it's okay. You can call them a mob. I'm sure they don't mind.
There's a mob out there driving the prices up and crushing all these short sellers. One of the bigger companies lost like almost $2 billion on this so far.
Yup.
I love it. They get to fuck us. Why can't we do it back?
Moment of unity.
As like someone who's a little bit more versed in this, I'm just gonna, as someone that's a noob on this, I'm gonna run a scenario and you tell me if I understand it correctly. So let's say I have $100 of stock, or I'm the company, I'm Coca-Cola. I have $100 of stock in Coca-Cola. And so I lend you that stock, right? Now you have $100.
You are Coca-Cola?
No, I'm lending you $100 of Coca-Cola.
Okay. Well, you would be lending me shares of, not dollars of. That's an important distinction, because the way you make money is by returning a share. So if you lend me money, okay.
I give you 2 shares worth $50 each.
Yep.
And so then what you do is, correct me if I'm wrong, you sell them for less?
No, I sell you. So you own 2 shares right now.
Yep.
And they're worth $50 a piece. And you say, Tim, I will lend you these 2 shares at an annual percentage rate of 5%, 15%, whatever, right?
Okay.
So I say, cool. So I borrow them. At the time I borrowed them, they're worth $100. So I owe you $15 if I hold them for a year. Just for simple, let's just say for simple math, right? Normally it's, calculated monthly and blah, blah, blah. But anyway, so I owe you $15 to borrow them a year. I get them from you at $100 value. I sell them to the market immediately at $100. So let's say I hold them for the year and I give you the $15 because that's what I owed you. But the share price dropped from $50 a share to $10 a share. Well, at the end of that year, I only owe you 2 shares back. So I have to buy them. I have to buy 2 shares from the market, but they're only $10 a share. So I get to buy them for a total of $20. So I return you the 2 shares. So now you have 2 shares like you did before and $15. And I have an $80 profit from the market trade minus the $15 that I had to give you to borrow them. Right. I have a net profit of $65.
Seems lovely and very complicated, just like all the rest of it.
Mostly retail investors do not short. You can, and some do, but generally it's
right.
It's
well,
not
I mean, hey,
investors.
GameStop is a pretty fair bet. To be fair, like I'm just saying,
the person though that gets fucked in this is the original lender, right? Because like now you have 2 stocks worth way less than they did before. I mean, you made $15, I guess.
You would have received that market appreciation anyways, because you're the owner of the stock. It's going down in value anyway, so you're already taking that loss.
Oh, I see. So at least you get $15 out of it.
Right.
Got it. I see.
And that price changes, right? So maybe the normal price to short a share is somewhere in like 6 or 7% range. Right now, to short GameStop, if you're trying to short it from somewhere, they're charging you in the like 25 to 30% range.
I see. And so that's why Reddit then came in and we're like, all right, let's do it. And made some people rich, I guess. Pretty cool.
Well, for now, I mean, eventually the short squeeze ends. Eventually the short shares go away, or the people buying decide that, that they've gotten enough out of it, or whatever happens. and it's going to go back to the normal valuation or close to, I would imagine. It may go into the $20 range or $30 range, which is what it went up to.
Because some people may have picked it up and they're not day
believe in it.
traders.
Yeah, they may believe that the Chewy CEO is going to bring this company up. So, but it's most likely at some point, once this roller coaster ride ends, it's gonna just plummet back down to where it was. And so the challenge for people is to not ride it to the very end. And that's why you never know when that's going to happen, but that's the risk, right? I mean, that's what it is.
It's always the name of the game. All right.
Today I made $6.44 from AMC. So I can get a whole latte today, guys.
Nice. Would you have one share?
I bought like two, like nothing crazy.
You bought them today.
Yeah, I bought them like in the afternoon, so I made a couple bucks, but nothing too insane.
You've lost money now, boy.
I'll sell it tomorrow.
It's too late. They're already trading at $12.
Oh yeah. What do I have?
They may go up. They may go back up by tomorrow.
By the way, if anybody needs a financial advisor,
I'm pretty sure I can't advertise like that. But
okay, Tim's not your guy.
I'm not offended if I lose, $19. I'm not a trader. I'm not a gambler. So and I don't know enough to like be informed. So like if I wouldn't have dumped like $1,000 even, because it's like, to me it's basically the same as gambling, because I just don't know enough to like even make somewhat more of an informed decision other than like a roulette table. So.
No, you did fine, man. Like just playing with a couple bucks, having a good time, getting involved, whatever, right? Where I think people are gonna regret it someday, and maybe not particularly on this trade, but the mentality of you're hearing about these people that are maxing credit cards, taking out as much money as they can, remortgaging houses, doing whatever to put more and more money into this. So right, it's almost like a pyramid scheme, right? Like people make money until the end, and as long as you're not the people at the end, you do okay. But if you're the guy that did all those things and you're the one at the end,
yeah, and your app freezes halfway through and it doesn't sell when you think it should, or you go to sleep and you wake up, or like whatever it is, and then you're already all the way down the slope lower than when you bought.
No, that happens. It happened to me twice so far this year. It's probably cost me somewhere between $25,000 and $50,000. That apps goofing up online. The Charles Schwab website is poor. It happened to me today. It cost me $12,000 today.
It's
the Charles Schwab website cost me $12,000 today.
We don't have any money. Well, I mean Tim does, but
why is it so shitty? Why does it glitch out?
Well, part of it, the market was struggling, so multiple websites were struggling today. But it's also because of my situation. So I'm limited where I can trade, and because I'm a professional in the industry, I have limited access to software because they have to pay more money for it. And so it's like $400 a month. So I basically have to trade on the pleb site. I can't use the trading site like most people. And so I don't think they upkeep it as well. Yeah. I'm a gamer too, man. Come on.
That's hilarious.
That's I had no idea that there was that type of restrictions on it.
It's crazy. Yeah. Financial industry is one of the most regulated things in the country. Thanks, Bernie Madoff. And
yeah, he's the one that picked you all up. I mean, if he was the one running all his schemes, he opened for bipartisan regulations. Like, yeah, we can't let that happen again.
Right. Yeah, he took advantage. I mean, took people's money, like millions and millions from people, bankrupt them in their retirement. Complete dirty scuzzbag.
Yeah.
But he ruined it for everybody. Like, it's more expensive to work with financial advisors because we have regulations. It takes us a lot longer to do things. We have to be very strict about the notes we take and how we approach things, what we can say, what we can't say.
Wow.
The types of investments we can put you in, the processes we have to go through. It's intense. It's not, I can't just be like, hey, I like this stock, you should invest in that. Like, that's not something that as an advisor, a fiduciary advisor, I can actually do. I have to learn about you. I have to know what your goals are, what you're trying to do with your life, all these things to say, okay, this is the type of investment that best suits your needs and your plans, right?
And then you can't directly benefit in the same way. You have to go through, like, as you said, the pleb sites to invest.
Well, yeah. So the reason for that is, and I know we don't want to get too deep into this. We can transition after I answer this question. But the reason is, let's say I'm working with a very wealthy. Let's say Elon Musk is my client. Yo, Elon, I know what I'm talking about, boy. Come on. But let's say Elon Musk is my client, right? And I'm talking to Elon, and Elon's like, hey, I think I'm gonna go out and buy me like 100 million shares of GameStop, right? I can't use that information and go and buy a bunch of shares of GameStop ahead of the time and then buy them with his money, jack the price up, and then sell my shares, right? That's illegal. All of my investments have to be in sites that are either monitored by my company or send all of my trade data to my company to be monitored to make sure that those types of things aren't happening.
Got it. Wow, that's interesting. No, I mean, I guess thanks, Bernie Madoff.
It's safer. It's safer for the clients, right? It's at the end of the day, but it's also like you have to wear a 6-point harness when you're driving a car rather than a seatbelt.
Yeah.
I guess
even if you're only going 20 miles an hour.
I by no means am asking you to disclose this, and please don't. But like, I have to imagine to an extent, or you don't even need to comment on this, but I have to imagine there at least has to be some type of battle pay like baked into a salary. Then to be like, well, you have all these skills to like invest, and but like, we're going to restrict some access because you're helping other people invest. There must be some like, or I'm assuming there must be a commission based or something like that.
Yeah, I mean,
that's so interesting.
Everybody gets paid differently, but in my current situation, I don't mind saying I make less than I did when I was an engineer. But I enjoy my job a lot more, so that's the part that matters.
That's cool. Yeah, we get to help people, which is pretty. I mean, engineers help people too, but it's cool. I guess interesting too. Like, I mean, I guess on to share the nonprofit side. I mean, yeah, we're also like, regulations hit hard, dude. It's crazy. Like, I mean, I have to know, like, and this terrifies me because we have a small enough budget. Like, we work with a couple $100,000. Like, that's nothing. Like, that's like a small budget. Most of it just hits payroll, so it's easy to monitor. But like, I have to know where like every like to the cent, I have to be ready to like audit our account at any given time. Like, to pass an IRS audit, we have to do every single penny has to be accounted for. It's crazy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Makes you wonder how people get away with fraud so often. I don't know. It's kind of crazy. Or maybe they do.
Like, I see loopholes. Like, I mean, I don't exploit them, but I see them. Like, for example, like, I have let's say I have a budget of like $5,000 for mentoring, right? Like, in theory, I can use that budget to like buy like nice things for my students. If I wanted to, I can go spend that money at like my own store. Like, if I created like the Chris Scott Teespring, like I can just buy things through that technically. I don't, because like I'm not trying to lose my job, but like, yeah, you could get away with stuff like that if like, nobody.
The right answer is I don't, because it's not the right thing to do.
It's not the right thing to do. That's why I don't do it. And also, like, I'm not running a nonprofit to make money. So I mean, some shitty people do. I mean,
yeah.
Hey,
did you guys hear of the new White House staff they hired?
I've heard a couple of them.
New cleaning crew.
Yeah.
New cleaning crew.
That's funny. That's really funny.
He's back in, boys. He said he'd be back one way or another.
That's a good picture. How's my hair?
It does look like Mrs. Doubtfire. Oh, shit. I thought I'd transition into the memes.
All right, I got something. Let's see, where are my controls? Oh no, hold on. I got all sorts of wrong stuff up here. I need like 5 monitors. 5 monitors. I'm praying to the monitors, God. Please deliver 3 or 4 monitors for me.
All right, wait. Well, I might have one here.
Go for it. I'm still pulling mine up.
No, well, I have another one. I could save this one onto the thing, but I do have just to close out the last conversation. This was one of the funniest Stonk memes I saw.
My God.
The game's not today. It's like, hi guys. Yeah. It was good.
I don't know.
That's right. Yeah, this stock was the most traded stock yesterday, I believe, in the world, over Tesla, over Facebook. It was the most traded stock.
AMC might have beat it out today. I'm going to pull this up and look. AMC traded over 1 billion shares today, I believe.
Wow.
Let's see.
Was it Wall Street Bets as well?
AMC got fucked though because they're really stupid. I don't know if you guys saw this.
Yeah, AMC traded 1.25 billion shares, which is as unbelievable. GameStop traded 100 million today. So AMC traded 10 times the volume.
Jeez.
Wow.
All right. Here's my thing. All right, so we're officially transiting off this. I feel like we could talk about this all night. But good news, I guess. Most of my stuff is like, after having so much fun with this first conversation, I'm looking at all my memes and they're so catty and divisive. I don't even want to bring them up. But this one's pretty good. Mark Cuban launches generic drug company. And I don't actually know much about Mark Cuban, so I don't know if there's any drama.
I lost you guys.
I love Mark Cuban, dude.
Do you? Okay.
Yeah.
So that's good. All right, Tim likes him, so he must be at least okay.
Hey, Mark Cuban, I know what I'm talking about.
He's a billionaire. I know that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, he just started a drug company from the ground up.
Yeah. No, he's a very, very wealthy man.
Yeah. So the point about this article, I'm not going to read too much from it or anything from it, but he's doing what Donald Trump tried to do through executive order, but he's actually doing it, and it's a free market thing. So I absolutely love this, right? So what he's doing is he's making a generic drug company where he's going to make generic drugs, right? So the generic version of expensive drugs, and he's going to have very transparent pricing about all of it, right? So you're finally going to get to see, okay, insulin is this expensive, and this is why it's this expensive, or this is why it shouldn't be that expensive. So he's going to just completely undercut the market. Like if prices are inflated somewhere, he's going to completely undercut that. And this right here is great. This is life-saving. Right?
It's actually really smart from a business standpoint too, I think.
What's that?
I said I think it's really smart from a business standpoint too, because if let's say that the generic drugs are extremely overpriced to cost to manufacture. I don't know that generic drugs are, but let's say they are. He is going to be able to come in and still make a profit, right? He's not saying I'm going to sell them at cost. He's saying I'm just going to show you how much I'm making. So he's getting into a very profitable industry. And he has now amazing marketing. He is something that's going to make people say, "Hey, I'm going to buy. I want to be part of this," right?
Wow, the company's looking to introduce more than 100 drugs by the end of 2021. That's crazy.
Yeah. Wow.
But it's generally not the generic drugs that are extremely overpriced. It's the non-generic drugs. It's the ones that are still covered by a patent.
Yeah. But what about insulin?
I believe insulin is still covered by a patent, but I could be wrong.
Right. There's a bit of a scheme. I don't know if people know about this, and I don't know if this is correct. This could just be a urban legend about this, but they modify the patent every 3 or 4 years or something like that, so that it doesn't expire, even though the patent should have expired 20 or 30 years ago. And for those who don't know, having a patent on your drug means that other people can't also make and sell it, right? So typically the free market, or the market, let's just say the market. So typically the market controls drug prices by saying, okay, you created this drug, you have a patent on it, so for 5 years, you are the only one who can manufacture and sell this drug. And that way you get all the profits for your research back, and you can, invest that money into your company, your employees, your stockholders, whatever it is. But the way the system works is that now the patent is supposed to expire, so free market competition can come in and say, hey, you're selling these pills at $100 a pop, I can make this for $5 a pop, right? And then it brings the prices down. So people have been using the patent exploit. At every 3 or 4 years, they'll tweak something about the drug, and then they'll reapply for the patent, and then you can't compete with them. So
no, but you would be. I don't know patent law deep enough, although I have a patent.
Right, that's just what I hear.
So. But I would imagine that the old patent you would be able to make the old drug. I would have thought the non-improved version.
Yeah, that's always been my thought too. But
but I just looked it up.
I probably heard it on a TED Talk or something. Like 4 or 5 years ago. God knows.
I did look it up. Insulin is currently under patent, and it is what you were saying, which is they continue to make improvements, and so the new improved drug is under a new patent, and it's been that way at least in this country, because no drug maker will make the non-improved version, and that could partly be due to the FDA, right? Maybe the FDA says
I wonder
you can't use the not best drug or something. I don't know, but
lame.
Soon.
All right, that's fine. You got anything? Chris actually threw up a meme, so it is your turn, Tim.
All right.
Do it.
I got a new flag. I finally bought myself a Biden-Harris flag. I put it up.
Stop it. You stop it. So catty.
It's my new mic. It makes me catty.
Well, hey, to be fair, you should probably add 2 more stars to that, because that's what they want to do. That's what the liberals are trying to do with America.
I'm fine with having some more states, man.
I'm not. Not if they're completely Democrat. That's so stupid.
They're trying to. I saw this another.
Republicans should have tried to incorporate them then.
We're just going to divide fucking Missouri in 4 parts next time. See how you guys like it.
Are you trying to gerrymander the country now? Jesus.
Yeah, exactly.
Like 79 states.
It's court packing, it's state packing, it's just packing in general. That's how it works. But before you know, it's just going to be county level states.
To be fair, I think California definitely should probably be more than one state. Like, that place is genuinely like. What would happen is you get more Republican reps in the House. Like, that would probably benefit you, but we would get more senators. But yeah, California, like, it's insane. Like, the fact that they're considered one state is kind of nuts.
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah, it's one of those things.
Like, representation, it kind of sucks, especially for the Republicans in that state. Like, the Republicans in, like, the northeastern part of it. Shout out to you guys. Holy cow, I don't know how you deal with it, but like, I mean, there's, like, even Oregon was talking about that, like, because it's like Portland is the hotbed of Antifa, but you have people like blood-redded Republicans out in the country, like, it's like, why are we a part of this state? Like, stop, leave me alone,
Yeah.
I don't identify by state very much. Like,
something else.
When I talk to people, I'm like, I'm an Ohioan, bitch.
Californians do and Texans do.
Like,
in my experience,
Texans for sure do, but
Californians as well. It's a fight between California.
I believe you. I'm not saying they don't. I've
too,
heard
actually.
it, but like, I feel like that's not as much of a thing anymore. 200 years ago, it was like your state first, federal government second. But our culture's changed.
Chris, you started to say something.
All I was going to say, probably our best bet is DC statehood. DC statehood makes a lot of sense, and that's probably the best bet of like a next state type thing, or Puerto Rico, but not California splitting. It's just Puerto Rico has probably more bipartisan support, and DC by all means should be a state. Like, it's kind of insane that it's not considered a state.
Wasn't it not a state on purpose to reduce favors given to states?
I thought Puerto Rico didn't want to be a state, so they didn't have to pay taxes or something.
Puerto Rico wants to be a state, but no, DC, I think the idea of it is it wanted to be like federal land, like non-state based, but there's a lot of people who live in DC who are like, so DC does have reps, and they do have, like, they don't have a senator, but they do have non-voting reps. So there is like a DC like representative in the House of Reps, but the problems that have come out of it that people probably didn't foresee being as big of an issue when it was initially established this way, but it is now, is like, DC, like, Congress is basically their governor. So there's like no oversight on like when they want National Guard called in. There's no oversight on like the citizens can't vote in elections, even though you have like a lot of people living in DC. You can't, other than the president, but they have no reps, no Senate. There's basically no representation for the people in DC anywhere. And it causes a lot of like representation driven problems. They don't have their own police. DC is like, hey, we want to legalize marijuana, and Congress, being Republican, is like, no, we're not doing that. So Yeah.
I think there's 66. Random fact. I think there's about 66% support in the American public right now for legalizing marijuana.
Yeah, it should be legalized.
Wanna get high. Wanna get high. Wanna get high.
Kind of insane. It's not. Okay. All right. That's my little bit there. Chris, your turn. What you got?
All right. Let me pop this up. All right. So this is just a tweet screenshot, but I encourage you guys to watch the video. It went pretty big, pretty viral. There's a whole slew of them at this point, but Representative Marjorie Greene, she's one of the, she is one of the few, but like successfully QAnon supporters that have been elected to Congress. You know, devout Trump supporter, which I mean, I guess most House Republicans are devout Trump supporters at this point, which is pretty disgusting. But that's beside the point. Specifically on Marjorie Greene. Sorry to not to straw poll about Republicans, but Marjorie Greene is pretty insane. Like this is a video, like I encourage you guys to watch it, like following the Parkland shooter survivors, like calling them out, saying it's fake, saying it never happened, saying that like they're trying to take away guns. And it's like, these are some high schoolers that just had their friends murdered. She has like explicitly published things online and attended Sandy Hook conspiracy theory rallies. She's like liked and responded to comments on Facebook saying like, yeah, we should put a bullet. So there's someone that commented on her thing. It was like, before she was elected, like, we should put a bullet in Pelosi's head. And she like liked it, which is disturbing, right? It's disturbing. That's problematic. Yeah, it's like, you shouldn't like that. And there's other ones where it's like another person was like, we should, and I think it's pretty much the exact quote. It was like we should get rid of Pelosi, whether we have to kill her or vote her out. And then Marjorie Greene is like, we're working on it. And it's like, what do you mean we're working on it? Like, oh my God. So I think that's
crazy,
where, like, but that's where, like, this is why you have like, you know, it's not public yet entirely. But like people like AOC, like, hey, I'm terrified to like be in a room with some of my other Republicans when Congress was being like raided, because she's like, oh my God, like Lauren Boebert and Marjorie Greene were giving tours to people the day before. Like, and I get it. Like AOC probably had the right to be pretty afraid. Like, but beyond that, Marjorie Greene is like, needs to be kicked out of Congress. Like, this is like not a good face for the Republican Party.
Lock her up.
Well, Lauren Boebert has a whole criminal record. Marjorie Greene, I don't know what she does.
Right, but
Lauren Boebert spent a lot of time in prison, and not like. Well, and it wasn't like Martin Luther King Jr. prison. We're like, hey, I'm marching, and then I got arrested in Alabama by racist cops. It's like, no, I beat my husband. Like,
I hope
DUI. Yeah,
I'm just gonna say, man, she's got to get voted out. Vote her out.
No, definitely.
I texted my Puerto Rican contacts, and I'm waiting for a response on if they want statehood or not.
Okay.
His first response, because I said, does Puerto Rico want to be a state? And his first response was, islands have allegiances to man-made concepts? ? Little prick ass.
No, it's Puerto Rico is like Puerto Rico probably can't become a state. They're very debt ridden, because basically like after Cuba, Puerto Rico became like America's like brothel casino, and we really kind of like made a lot of money. Like Wall Street raided Puerto Rico, like basically because they weren't a state. They were just like kept going into deeper and deeper and deeper bankruptcy, because they just kept getting forced to take out loans from Wall Street, and they can do that because they weren't a state. A state can't do that, right? But now that they have all this debt, like you can't just like absolve it. It's like a Greece scenario, so they're kind of screwed.
It's probably like a drop in the bucket compared to the federal debt. Just lump it in.
And I guess that's like that's the argument though, that like our country's been using against it. But I agree. It doesn't. I don't buy it. I mean, we should.
I don't think they want it. So when I was talking, the person I just texted, I was talking to his dad last year sometime. And if I remember correctly, his dad was saying that generally they don't want to be a state because they get all the advantages of being a U.S. citizen with the exception of voting rights, which they don't give a shit about, and they don't have to pay the same taxes. So they're like, nah, we're good. We're happy.
Yeah, and federal taxes hit hard, those income taxes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're no joke. They're really not any joke.
Okay. All right, I got something. All right. Here's one from me.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Reddit. The old Reddit. So, Ilhan Omar. She actually, before I get into this one, I'm just going to say props to her when she was starting to call out the surveillance state, right? So everybody was like, oh my God, we have to monitor libertarians. we have to we have to monitor all the domestic terrorists. And she came out and said, okay, we got to be careful with this. We're not trying to create an even bigger surveillance state than we already have. So props to her. I give her big props for that. Honestly, I wasn't expecting her to say that, but she's incredibly correct. Let's just say. So good for her on that. But now back to the partisan stuff. So again, I keep pointing out. So Joe Biden is turning out to be the most progressive president in the history of progressive presidents. Although Tim pointed out to me earlier that that's not necessarily true. Right? Progressivism is an ever moving standard. So I'm pretty sure there were other extremely progressive presidents. So let me just put it this way. He's as progressive as the right fears he was going to be, which is, hyperbolically so.
We love
Straight from Ilhan Omar.
I think Biden's gotten some weird, it's also... All right, so I'm going to catch myself on this because I remember when Trump was first elected, and for what it's worth, Trump was pretty insane. We all can agree on that. Like, he was a bit nuts, policy aside.
Everyone felt bored since Biden got elected.
Yeah, so something to keep in mind.
It's like, are we in intermission? What's going on? Where's all the stories and shit?
I know, it's great. Every time a new president comes in, it's when they roll out all executive orders or they overturn previous administration's executive orders. So this is just whenever there's a party change, you see like this ceremonious of like executive order city coming through. Trump did the same thing, overturn a bunch of things that Obama had done. Eventually there'll be another Republican president in our lifetime.
Okay, so it didn't start with him. I will agree.
It's always been something.
George W. Bush did one in his first week. Biden is up to 33, I believe.
Yeah,
well, that doesn't make him progressive, right? Like, I feel like Trump pushed things really far his way, and so when Biden gets in, it's a lot to just get back to how it was before Trump, which doesn't necessarily make him progressive.
Agreed.
Right?
It's the content that makes
is what he's doing more like progressing us further left than where we were before Trump was in office.
Oh yes.
Like, what's some examples of what he's done so far with his executive orders to do that?
Only culturally on things like I would say environment, he's a bit more, and then private prison is a big thing that we've been wanting. The Democrats as a whole have been wanting for a while now. We actually pretty much rock against Obama for not doing that. But yeah, I think that you're going to see where Biden is going to become more corporate Democrat. You're going to see on like Wall Street reforms. I don't think it's going to. We're not going to see more financial regulations. We're not going to see things like that. Probably things might even be rolled back, if anything. We're also so early in his presidency, like 7 days in, we can't see like the meat and potatoes of what Biden's actually going to do. He's just doing the things that, like, here's the reality. A lot of interest groups pushed Biden into this presidency. He kind of has to act on these things.
Right. And so my argument has been that he will act on those things. Right. I mean, let me just say, his Secretary of Treasury is a person who in her opening speech said that she was going to use the Treasury to advance racial equity, right? Which is
that's fair,
insane.
Why?
That's the Treasury.
Because of the word equity.
Money.
Because of the word equity. Well, equity is a money word.
Yeah, but now it's
equity is something but the thing is we have there is massive discrepancies and disparities in our people of color in this country. Racism. What?
Disparities do not equal racism. Disparate outcomes.
No, they don't. But that's where. No, of course. Well, sure. I mean, on paper they don't. They might be a product of racism, but that's another debate. But I think the responsibility of a government at the end of the day is everything's economics. And so it's like, if we could, for example, bipartisan opportunity zones. That's where, for the most part, yeah, I think what gets passed on these is opportunity zones can be anywhere in the country, but predominantly they're existing in formally redlined districts where you can bring in like new capital flows from wealthy investors, from the government, so black-owned businesses can get. Well, they predominantly were made to support people of color, like communities of color.
Why?
That's
favoritism.
Because,
wait, let me.
They can be used anywhere. It can be used anywhere. Nate, like if you're poor Appalachia, that can qualify as an opportunity zone. It just happens that but most places that are in poverty in the country are where people of color are residing.
Yes, I agree. So she is either advancing racial equity or she is helping poor people, right? If you're helping poor people, which is what you're trying to tell me she's doing, I'm okay with that, right? But if she's saying that I'm specifically going to be helping black people, that is a racial economic policy which has no place in government, right? The government should not be discriminating based on race. If you are poor and deserve this help, you should be getting the help, right? Your race has nothing to do with it.
I think where the big disagreement comes on this topic, one, we have you guys definitely have a disagreement between equity and equality.
Yes. We should do a podcast on that. Yeah. We really should. That's a big one.
But second to that is, like the idea that when somebody's beaten down, they need more help, and then the third point to that is, were they really beaten down or did they trip and fall themselves, right? So some people think there is no, policies that are driven by racism or the previous policies that were racist don't really affect the population today, and that none of that really affects it, and so they shouldn't get any special treatment. And other people believe those things did affect them and still do affect them, and have resulted in where they're at, and they need more help to get lifted back up, right? And so there's so many different pieces of it, and I think to say that because the Secretary of Treasury came out and said that she believes that more help needs to be offered to these people.
No, she specifically said racial equity. If she said,
okay, so let me pull in Nathan here and say I'm going to tell you what she actually meant. What she was saying to the left. What the left knew she was saying. This is what you say to us all the time.
No, you probably should defer to Chris on this because he'll tell you exactly what she meant.
Well, I think at the end of the day, all right. So here's my personal beliefs. I think, look, it makes way more sense with PC terms. Like we're gonna improve the economic quality for those in the lower class, which like predominantly is comprised of people of color as a product of institutionalized racism over the past 100 years. But that's the easier thing because then we're both on board, right? Just because like you may not factor in like the 100 years of racism, but it's like, oh yeah, all poor people, let's help them out, right? Like let's do that. And I agree with that too. We shouldn't, when we create things, and I have to assume like, here's the reality. If we're gonna booster, food stamps as a policy to like improve racial equality, the food stamps are eligible for everybody. White people make up the predominant like occupants of food stamps. White people are the predominant occupants of Section 8 housing vouchers, right? It's just so white people are actually a little bit better at getting these resources, even because there's also more white people. So I mean, proportionally, I'm sure that's not the case. I'm kind of playing the straw poll right now. Like proportionally, it's not that case because obviously there's more white people than people of color. But for what it's worth, if we improve like low income programs, sure, that's going to help everybody. But and that's probably what she should have said. But also, I would say it's not what she should have said because everybody on the middle to the left that elected Biden to elect her were pretty much like, all right, I'm going to say something kind of shitty, but we won the election and we believe in these things. We say like, we voted for Biden. We came out and donated and campaigned and wrote postcards to voters because we wanted somebody that comes out and says, yeah, we've had institutionalized racism as a problem. Let's do something to amend that and build racial equality, which is going to help everybody. But yeah, we should say that. We should explicitly say racial equality. Words matter.
They do.
He interpreted it for you.
Kind of went into that one. I like it.
Next meme.
time to. I think we could probably switch over to our first topic there.
I've got two that I
wait. We got memes. Okay, I'm sorry. I don't want to do that.
I'm out of memes.
Okay,
I've got a couple. These aren't big talkers. So first off,
well, yeah, everything we do is big talkers.
What the fuck?
Wait.
When did somebody think this was good hair?
Oh, he had a straight up mullet in the 90s. It's actually worse than that.
Well, this
like
is
an actual, honest to God, short in the front, long all the way down to the middle of his back.
Yeah, this is black and white days. This is back when Chris didn't have a remote control for his TV. Okay,
heard that.
I still don't.
And then here's a side angle.
Yeah, there you go.
Jesus.
And I feel like they're making sweet eyes at each other. I don't know.
They obviously are.
Wait, hang on 1 second. Don't. Oh my God.
Wait, Chris, is Bill Clinton an alcoholic? Do you think? You see his nose and stuff.
Dude, I don't know what Bill Clinton is. No one really likes him. I mean, we're not like.
No, I'm not.
Party has,
I mean, if he's anybody's boy, he's probably yours. But I'm not saying he's your boy. Like I'm just saying.
No, we're not. I'm pretty safe to say that moderates to left are not like very favorable to Bill Clinton anymore. I mean, when we look, because I mean, to play on Tim's point earlier, it's like things have shifted, politically, and so by all intents and purposes, Bill Clinton is would be considered a Republican today, like based on what he pushed. Maybe not his beliefs today have probably changed, but like the beliefs he was elected on, like pushing through the policies, were like, wow, full blown conservative, like
border control,
94 crime bill, border control, like all the above. And we are all here for changing opinions. We're all here for growth, right? Like Biden passed the 94 crime bill, but he's grown a lot. Like he's put action to words. I think the difference with the Clintons is they changed so many times that it wasn't just like, okay, I've heard a better argument, let me switch this. It was like very specific to like what's electable, and that's you have to do that as a politician. So I might be more critical than I should be.
Yeah,
but at the same
point, it'd be tough to be critical about that and then not hit the people that you actually like in politics, because they all do it.
Yeah, they all do. So, but anyways.
Yeah, nobody can read that. Read that out for him.
So her tag.
I'm sure Bill was drinking. I'm sure Bill has some some funny habits.
I know he likes private time in his office.
He definitely. Speaking of that, Monica Lewinsky liked one of my tweets this week.
What?
Really?
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I mean, I responded to her tweet, so it wasn't like I was like doing something like it wasn't like she just randomly out of nowhere. It was just like about like child welfare stuff. So it's kind of cool. I was like, yeah, she's a big advocate.
The least coolest person on this podcast.
I was nothing special. I just wrote about child welfare and she liked it, and I was like, oh, sweet. I feel
thanks, Monica.
For those that can't read this because it's pretty small, her tag says, Texas deserves better than Cruz.
Yo, you think I was looking at that. I was thinking about it. I was like, how do you think she did it? Right? Do you think she actually walked up to him with that facing out, or did she flip it around when she was right next to him?
I bet she flipped it.
Yeah.
I bet she.
Oh, they got
it. Looks like it's backwards. But.
It's always a flip. It's how you do it. I mean, there's a couple other like really notorious flips. We'll have to find some. Those are always fun ones.
I thought this one.
Yeah. Hey, here we go. I guess we're gonna go right into the 15 here.
Yeah, let's do it. What are your thoughts on?
Wait, Chris, is that you? You that's your favorite comic, right? You agree with that?
You gotta give me 1 second. I've been keeping conscious of my computer not like lagging.
I know.
So just 2 seconds. 1, 2. Oh, I have Tim's video up. It's not even yours.
Tim, show it.
My video?
No, show him the meme.
I think I just closed it. Do I still have it? I just closed it.
Closed it right when
It's just like some like sad sucker in a McDonald's uniform saying, "Oh crap!"
So the top of the meme had the politician saying,
our essential workers are heroes.
Our essential workers are heroes, and there's a guy in a McDonald's uniform or whatever. And then the next one, the hero, the McDonald's worker says, "Can I get a living wage?" And the third cell is the politician saying, "Go fuck yourself."
Nice. Yeah, I mean, I guess I mean, in terms of $15 an hour minimum wage, I probably disagree with most of the people on my side of the aisle on this. I'm more for, so first and foremost, $7.25 an hour is like absolutely disgusting, and that needs to be increased across the board. I think that we need to have a minimum wage increase. I think 15 might cause some serious problems in parts of the country. So I think, definitely a federal boost is needed right now, because you got people out in Missouri making $7.25 an hour. But I think also we need to base it geographically. I think places like Connecticut, Seattle, New York, we can pretty much weather 15 with an incremental rollout. But places like Kentucky, Arkansas, Wyoming, even Florida, what you're going to end up seeing is like you're just going to see McDonald's, Taco Bell, Wendy's, I don't know, maybe some Salad Express occupy every street corner, and small.
What the hell is a Salad Express?
I'm just making stuff up.
Honestly,
but
Panda Express,
small Panda Express. There you go. No, but small businesses are going to die. Like that's just the reality of it. Small businesses are 100%
going to die. They're not going to die.
Okay, well, we'll go into the data, but let me just put my point out there. So I don't mind going a little bit more full libertarian on this one, and I could propose a mechanism by which we can figure out what the minimum wage in each state should be, and that mechanism is the free market, right? Because people know what they want to work for and what's worth it to them, right? So one of my main points about this is, and this is where Chris and I will probably diverge a little bit, is that I believe that everybody has a right to set the wage that they want to work for, and companies have a right to offer the wage that they want to offer. And that right there is a contractual agreement between two entities, and the government has no part in any of it, right? So
yeah, I would disagree on that.
Right.
Just to go on that a little bit, I mean, it's a pretty heavy Republican policy to subsidize the oil industry. And that's pretty anti-free market.
Yeah, that's big. That's crony corporatism. That's big government. That's not, like I said, the argument I made was libertarian, and any libertarian you talk to is not okay with those big oil subsidies.
Yeah. I think at the end of the day that the problems with that is that you would end up with a lot of people getting paid much less than they should be. So I think a federal standard.
Define should be. Start there. What do you mean should be?
Well, I'm not entirely under. So a livable wage. I think
I'll comment to it real quick, because this kind of goes into the point I was going to make anyway, which is when you have pure free market with no government control, you get abuse of labor. Historically, we've seen this. It's not like some speculation. It happens, right? Without labor laws, without wage laws, without other things in place, you get corporations having all the power and abusing labor.
Okay, so I'm not advocating for no labor laws. I'm just sort of specifically talking about
minimum wage is part of a labor law. It's saying that
I know
this is the minimum that we will allow you to pay somebody. That is part of it.
Okay, so let me ask you this then. So I guess we can just probably dive into this as the first issue, and then we'll probably move on to things that we more agree on. If minimum wage is $7.50 and somebody and there's a job that a company wants done that is just not worth a $7.50 return, but somebody wants to do that job for them for $6.50. And so are you telling me that you have the right to stand between that person that wants to do it for $6.50, maybe in his spare time or whatever it is, and the company that wants that job, but it's not worth any more than $6.50 to them?
Well, I guess you.
So I would go ahead, Chris.
I mean, actually, no, Tim, go first. Really,
I was going to say I would argue that I would like to see that person is actually like, hey, I only want to work for $6.50. That's all the more that I want to work for.
No, the setting factors is that the free market means
this already exists. Like your scenario, like so. Say Nate, you I need someone to plan. All right, I need someone to install like IT protection, computer, like HIPAA compliant software on my computer to make sure like my student records aren't being accessed, right? And so I go to you and you're like, look, I have a life and I'm busy. $1,200 and I can do it. And so then I find another person and they're like $900. Cool. I can do it. I can do an independent contract for $900 for X amount of hours. But when we're talking about like actual, like steady, hourly work that is meant to be like your career, your job, like, the alternative.
You're making an assumption there. You're making the assumption that would be the career and the job instead of maybe a kid who is trying to do a summer job. He's 16 years old. He just wants to make a little money on the side in his free time.
And those exist for those kids, right? Like, sure, like let them go mow along.
It's illegal.
Yeah, so that's stupid. Like, we should let a kid go mow along if they want to. But
no, they do get to go work. They just go work for $750 instead of $650.
Okay, but the job, I'm telling you, the job is not worth $750. It's worth $650.
Then that job doesn't exist.
Job doesn't exist because you can't.
Yeah.
You can't.
So hold on. I don't know that there's an argument to say raising minimum wage doesn't remove some jobs from the labor market. If somebody was making that argument, I would say you're wrong.
My point is, why are you okay with that?
Yes.
Right. So let me just for the both of you real quick. Let me just say.
Sure.
Okay, and then I'll let you say this because I just want to address.
I'm joking.
Yeah,
I'm fucking with you.
Everybody thinks that if you remove minimum wage, somehow there's going to be a sort of like a race to the bottom, right? Like somehow that the federal minimum wage of $750 is sort of like keeping the economy where it is right now. But there's absolutely no evidence for that, right? So there's no
one's ever removed a minimum wage, I would imagine.
There's no reason for you to believe that in the richest country in the world that when you remove an arbitrary limit of $750 that almost nobody is paid ever unless you're in the poorest countries in the poorest states in the country, you're not just going to have a race to the bottom, right? This is not going to become the 1800s. We were a poor and industrializing nation. Right? That's what happens to poor and industrializing nations. You can actually see that in places like China and a couple years ago, India. You go through a phase where the value of your labor is almost complete dog shit. But dog shit is better than cat shit, which is what you're making on a farm, right? So all of these things are kind of relative, where it's like let's say, okay, so in the 1800s, we were cramming kids into the factories and they were making 30 cents a week or some shit like that. But it turns out that the output of their labor on a farm that they came from, right, because they came from the countryside into the cities for work, it turns out that the converted cost of their labor on a farm was half that or a quarter of that. So they were actually making more money in the factory in the grueling conditions, which were horrible. Yeah, I'm okay with them. A lot of safety regulations. But they were actually making more money in that factory. And on top of that, they were gaining managerial skills. They were learning how to be a part of the industrialized world. They were learning, okay, so you see what I'm saying? So I'm not going to elaborate too much further, but there's no reason to believe that a modern industrialized country like us, with the amount of wealth that we have, where people are already making more than minimum wage when they need to, and then, at minimum wage when they have to, there's no reason to believe that we're just going to race to the bottom, right? You're just going to find the people who really need that job who are willing to do it for a little bit less than minimum wage.
I think, all right, so to go an inch deeper in this, I just looked up some labor stats and you're right. Yeah. Very, very, very few people in the country are making exactly the $7.25 an hour. My argument is more that I don't think that, for what it's worth, I think $8-9 an hour are probably also like too low. So I think it's like, let's
depends on where you are.
Well, yeah, it depends on where you are. But I agree. And that's just kind of where like I feel that, but at the end of the day, it's like I do think that people would take advantage of others and pay less than the wage. I think that's like why.
Okay, let's say somebody offered you that job. Are you taking it?
What job?
The job that pays $6.50 an hour.
No, of course not.
Why are you not taking it?
Because I have more skills than I would than to work $6.50 an hour.
So you feel that that's not worth your time, and so if they need you, they're going to raise their price.
I think that's not a fair outlook. It's not that it's not worth his time; it's that he can make more.
Yes, literally.
Right?
You're saying the same thing.
No, we're not.
But I think there's a lot
we're
of
not saying that at all. What you're saying is if I had no skills at all and the only job I could get was a minimum wage job, right? But I had no other opportunity, and I still said, you know what? I'm not going to take that job. It's not worth my time.
Yep, that's up to you.
Right. That's not going to happen. Right? People will take whatever job they can to make money if they have no other source of income. What Chris is saying is, obviously, I wouldn't take that job. I have more skills. I can work a different job that does pay more, right? But if you don't have more skills and you have to take the minimum wage job, and companies are only paying minimum wage because they're allowed to, they don't have to pay more. There is a workforce out there that is desperate and will take a job because they have to take one. And these are the only jobs that they have skills for. Even though it's very possible for these companies that particular job is worth $10, $20, $30 an hour to them, and they're only paying $6.50 because they can. That's the other side of the argument that you are ignoring.
I think it comes down to two, that I'm a big believer that it's we have to measure our society based on how we treat its lowest members. And there are a lot of people who are, whether it's, right now it looks like there's 500,000 people making $7.25 an hour. I bet for those 500,000 people, if the minimum wage was $5 an hour, you'd have 500,000 people working jobs that paid $5 an hour. So now granted, is 500,000 that many? No, of course not. But also, here's an example of this. There's 400,000 foster kids every year. Would we say, yeah, you know what? Let's just cut all social services. It's only 400,000 people. It's only 0.00006% of the population. Of course not. We wouldn't say it's so insignificant. Let's just cut it. I'm sure you can look at any major small interest group. There's small populations and pockets. So I think we have to measure ourselves on how we treat the lowest members. I think it also comes to the reality is I personally do believe the minimum wage should be higher than $8 or $9 an hour. 15, well, yeah, that's getting a little high, and that's going to cause some problems. I think that's where it comes state to state. And I think that's where maybe our merger is. I don't think it should be as free market as hey, let's just let our country be, the cutesy, baker down the street makes the bread, trades his bread for whatever. To the car mechanic, you know what I mean? It's not just, we can't just be that utopian with libertarianism, but I do think there is a merger, and that's that I do believe that minimum wage, for the most part, should also be a state's issue, where each state can decide, yeah, we can weather 15 an hour, or no, maybe $9 an hour, right? But I do think there needs to be a federal base, right? But I believe that states need to set their own minimum wage as well. And then to use arguments in the past, it's if someone doesn't like that, they could leave the state, but for the most part, I think it's just responsibility in state governments to make sure that, they're not killing the little guy with raising minimum wage. And for what it's worth, Seattle, we're not really seeing that. I mean, Seattle was already a super uber wealthy place anyways. DC, we're not really seeing problems other than every single street corner is a chain. Connecticut, I think 15 should work, but it's probably going to hit some places pretty hard. The alternative is not a zero something. The reality is $15 an hour minimum wage means we are going to have more money in the pockets of people, which means the local economies will get boosted up a bit.
No, he doesn't believe in trickle down economics. Yeah, or he only believes in trickle down economics, not trickle up. So let me. I want to say one thing real quick.
Okay,
it's kind of two things, but one, Chris, I agree with you that giving states the right, which they already have, to control their minimum wage, anything above the federal, is a good idea. My stance is actually to have a federal wage that is based on a combination of cost of living and poverty level. So it's not a $15 flat or a $10 flat. It's the federally required minimum wage is, where I live, the cost of living is basically neutral. It's 1 compared to, other states. So the minimum wage here would be different than California. California could have a higher one. So it's some multiplier of that with the poverty level to make sure that people have a living wage. And then the other point I was going to make is when I was 16 years old, so we're talking a long time ago, 22 years ago,
Wow.
When I was 16 years old, working a intern job as a janitor during the summers out of school, I made $7.50 an hour. 22 years ago, a fucking 16-year-old kid made $7.50 an hour, and that's still minimum wage. Like,
it's pretty insane.
There's an issue, in my opinion, and that was minimum wage then. I was making the least they could pay me for that job.
Yeah. So look. So my point is again. So there's a difference between the way that Chris and I talk, and I mean, there's a reason for that, and there's a good reason for that, right? Because I believe there's a reason for the left and the right, and we look at the world differently, and there's a good utility for both of them. But I'll just point out the difference is that so Chris, you look at it as a communitarian or community thing, where you're like, we should be taking care of the lowest member of society, and I appreciate that. I really do. Like, I mean, that is exactly your job. You should, keep doing that. And I'm going to be here to tell you, like, hey, we can't afford that, or hey, like, you can't do this, otherwise it's going to have this negative effect, right? The conservatives are kind of supposed to be the fuddy-duddies in the party, and then the libertarians are supposed to be here to point out, like, once again, like, what you're talking about is, you said, I feel like, you keep saying things like, I feel like we shouldn't allow this, right? I feel like we should. This should not be allowed to happen. And the thing is what you're talking about again is you are saying, I feel like we should not allow two entities who have agreed that the job is only worth $650 and that they're willing to only take $650, and you're telling them that they cannot do that it's illegal, right? That's all you're doing right there. Right, because that job doesn't exist if you right. So all those 650 jobs out there that maybe, and mostly that's realistically, if you look at the statistics, it's just going to be kids in the middle of the summer taking this job, right? It's not going to be single moms.
So why shouldn't we just allow to open up our borders, let people in, and have the Mexicans or Indians or any other labor class that is willing to work for less than what the average American's willing to work for come in and do all this work for cheaper, so we can up the corporate profits?
And look, not to cut you off before you answer, but there's actually an already legislative solution to that. Like, if that 500,000 people a year are just summer camp jobs, and we wish that we could have more summer camp jobs that pay $6 an hour, or lifeguard jobs for some 17-year-old. All right, cool. Add a provision that allows you to lower the pay for those types of jobs in the summer, just as we do for waiters and waitresses and bartenders. It's not. There is a legislative fix to solve that problem, while also not impacting maybe the other population at that low wage work that are actually just for whatever reason they haven't been able to land a higher skill job. And I get it. You can say, well, let them go gain skills. And that's the utopian thing to say. The reality is this is what we're dealing with. It's well,
no, the reality is that you are responsible for making yourself marketable.
Aren't they trying to take away the waiter wage or whatever?
Who's they? Because that's a state thing, I think.
I thought that was part of the minimum wage bill, possibly.
Oh. Did you hear about that, Chris? I didn't.
I think it's always been something that Congress has to flirt with. It's never going to get passed. It's one of those things that there's too many Democrats that would oppose that.
Everybody's that would oppose that.
We talk about this from the American point of view, and I wish we had some other out there. But I can give you the idea of when I used to travel to Germany all the time, and I've said this in other podcasts because it's a great experience that I had. Their wait staff is not paid a waiter wage. They're paid a living wage. They're paid like any other job, and you barely tip. It was common for me to be there and have a €50 dinner and tip 75 cents, to round up to the nearest dollar. Right. Yeah. That's and I was always throwing, 5, 10, 15 euro down.
And I love Americans.
All my colleagues are like, no, what are you doing? Things can be different. Things can be different. If we got rid of the waiter wage, right?
I feel no way about that. That's just a different way to do it. But it kind of to that point, when you do things like this, when you manually try to influence the market like this, people always find ways to flex around it. And a lot of the times, I don't have a specific example, so you just take it on faith, I guess. Tim, I know you love taking me on faith, but a lot of times when you impose arbitrary restrictions on the market, people just find ways. It's like, okay, yeah, well, if you have more than 30 employees, you have to pay them, or you're responsible for providing them with insurance. It's okay. Well, all of our companies are now stopping at 30 people, right? And then the extra people are just contractors, right? So I don't actually have to, comply with this Obamacare mandate. And this happens no matter what you do. Like people find ways around this stuff. So it's like, honestly, I feel like more free market.
Those are minor loopholes. Like the companies that were in the 20 to 50 employee range, they probably figured out a way around that. A company that had 500 employees
just fired 30 people and made them contractors.
Yeah, and there were downsides to it, exactly. But there's more companies that have 500 employees, 200 employees that didn't adjust to it and ended up having to comply, right? And the same thing goes with what you were talking about. You were saying, so should we step in the way of somebody that is willing to work for $650 that couldn't get a job otherwise, and the company that's willing to pay $650 just because of this arbitrary limit? In general, I would say no. Like, I would like for that to be there. But you also have to give up some of these niche situations so that other things don't happen or better things do happen, right? And so by saying, look, yeah, we are going to lose some of these jobs that would pay $650, but to have a $750 minimum wage, or some of these jobs that would pay $750 only, and to the company, they're only worth $750 or $775. They're obviously going to make a profit on this person, right? So they're making some small profit, and it's only worth it to them to have them for that. Those jobs may disappear. Also, we may lose some jobs. But in general, the idea is that you get more cash flow into the people's hands, and the people that are working those jobs, most of them don't lose their job because of it. This is the idea. And so you do have a negative impact, right? What you're saying from minimum wage, but the benefits outweigh that. And you're only sticking on the free market one piece that doesn't really make sense. And yeah, the agreement is some of that happens, but you also have to look at what the other side is and what the benefits can be.
Go ahead, Chris.
I think too, something to take into consideration is that the reason why those jobs also don't exist is that, I have to believe that, when we start cutting into those $4, $5, $6 an hour jobs, those are like what have been outsourced. Those are the jobs that are going into China. And so I think part of the equation here as well is like, well, maybe we need to do, I am, for what it's worth, like definitely, and actually Biden's been putting some policies here. I think minimum wage in that regard even also comes back down to, these American first principles. It's like, okay, like, let's buy American. Like, for example, there's new regulations that are coming out. We already have them. Like, as a nonprofit, I have to prove whenever I make a purchase that I did my due diligence to try and make a purchase in the United States.
I remember you mentioning that.
Yeah, it's already there for us. It's going to end up showing up for other organizations, which in that case will then drive it's going to be a government driven, but it'll drive some more manufacturing here for those items and they're going to be a little bit more expensive, but it's like, whatever.
Well, I think whatever. But what if the price difference is like? Wait. Right.
I think you'll agree with me, Nate. Like, China is also equally artificially driving down the cost for these supplies.
Yes, by using slave labor.
Yeah, and so we want to block us from being able to purchase slave labor. Basically, is
right. But I would address the slave labor problem and block China rather than blocking exports in general. Right. So, for example, India is an up and coming market. They don't have slave labor. I feel like our markets should be open to their lower labor costs because everybody benefits. When you get cheaper services, you have more money to put towards other endeavors.
I guess so, yeah. I think either way, I'm pretty...
Trickle-down mentality that's not true.
Stop it, Timothy. I'll call
We've
you.
We've already had these Stonks. Trickle-down is fake, and we've proved it already. You don't have to take my word on it. I proved it to you.
At the end of the day, though, I think what it comes down to is that it's going to mean different things based on where you live in the country, because we have a large country. But I do believe there is a responsibility from the government to ensure that livable wages are a right to everybody. And that's pretty much the idea of the left. That's like where we stand.
does it work? And we should probably switch over to the next topic here pretty soon too. But Tim, you scraped together a couple articles, right? Did you find? I don't know if you did either, Chris, but did you find that there was consensus on, let's say, I think, what was it, San Francisco that raised their minimum wage, and they should be going up to 15 in the next couple of years?
Yeah, that it's not even going to do anything though. San Francisco should probably actually be higher than $15 a minute.
Right, exactly. So I mean, that was kind of my point. Let me talk about this because I actually did some fun math, and this is kind of where we're a little bit more bipartisan with it. So like, there's something to think about. Like, you think about it. So the federal minimum wage is stupid, right? And I think Chris, you already kind of talked about that. Maybe it should be left up to the states, right? With the federal thing, I totally agree because I looked at it. I looked at buying power in each states, and then I did what a $15 minimum wage would look like in different states. You know, if you calculate for the buying power, right? So if you did a $15 minimum wage in Missouri, that would be equivalent to the average of like $17.4 everywhere else. And if you did a $15 minimum wage in DC, that's equivalent to $12.6 in other places, right? And that difference gets exacerbated. Like I did it on a state level. Think about doing that on, let's say, DC to bumfuck rural Alabama, right? Like not just the capital of Alabama. Like, what's that, Tim?
You wasted a lot of time.
Who wasted time?
You did. It's called relative cost of living.
Relative cost of living is slightly different than buying power.
It's about the same.
It is about the same. I'm nitpicking, but I have cool stuff to pull up too. Wait, where'd it go? Do I not have the picture anymore? Wait.
Yeah. All right. So you need to learn how to pull images out. I'm going to teach you. But yeah, I mean, but that's exactly the point I was making, and Chris agreed with too. I think we all agree that cost of living is a huge impact, and the federal minimum wage shouldn't be too high to where it's a massive detriment to economies. You know, if a large portion of the area is currently making minimum wage and you just flat out double it, that's going to be an issue for the economy, regardless if it's the right thing to do or not, which isn't what I'm arguing. It's still going to be an impact that our economy won't be able to eat immediately.
I think too, it's and again, this is where our bipartisan agreement comes in. It should be state regulated or geographical regulated, but I think where kind of to play to the pros of this show or this podcast is that those on the left, and even not, so if this is the spectrum and Nate, you're right here and I'm over here for whatever reason,
wax on, wax off.
I actually switched my hands. So left, I'm over here, right, you're over here. Everybody from like this point over, especially from this point over, pretty much thinks there should be a federal $15 an hour minimum wage. Like that is like a majority thought on the left, not just like the far left anymore. And I disagree with that because for exactly what we're saying, like places like Missouri, places like, Arkansas, sure, that I see a lot of arguments coming from the left. And I guess let me talk directly to those folks on the left. But I think I see a lot of conversations are like, a lot of statements like as if they figured out like the holy grail of this. And it's like, hey, if I go to Taco Bell here in Connecticut, the most expensive thing is $3 an hour. And if I go to DC where there's already a $15 an hour minimum wage, Taco Bell, the most expensive thing is $2 an hour. And it's like, all right, yeah, congratulations. You just discovered that like corporate America can absorb a $15 an hour wage.
Yep,
but
they can afford that small profit margin in DC.
Yeah, they can absorb it. But like, the local coffee house on the corner, Ebenezer's, is going to get eaten by that. Like,
the prices also change on the chains. I don't know if you've been ordering much online during the COVID world, but if you go to, I don't know, throw out a Red Robin restaurant, right? And you don't type in your zip code, they won't give you prices on the menu because prices vary based on where you're at in the country. Right? So, yeah, they can absorb it sometimes, and maybe sometimes the supply chain allows it. Maybe the rat meat factory is in DC, and the shipping is really easy for them to Taco Bell. I don't know. Okay? But the point is, it kind of goes back to what I was saying, which is the point of minimum wage is to make it so that everybody has a living wage, right? That's the idea behind it in general. Living wage. A living wage varies from community to community. It's not even a state thing, right? It's not like if you look at the map that I had pulled up, I'll pull it up again here. Even within particular states, the living wage varies drastically. What would be considered a living wage, right? So having it as a state,
you know what can trace those contours with a fine line? It's the free market, baby.
Republican versus Democrat. But so I think it shouldn't just be a state thing either to say the state says, oh, our state's $15 or it should be, I do think we should have a federally mandated minimum wage. And I think that minimum wage should be based on a combination of cost of living, and what.
Well, let me do this, and then we can probably close it up. Let's just say this. Maybe both of you would agree with this. If we were to have the great evil, no, pull that back up. I want to keep that up while I'm talking. So, if we were to have the great Satan, which is a federal minimum wage, which none of us really wants, I think the least, well, right, but a higher one, whatever it is. I think the least egregious form it could take is if they go off of this map annually and they update it based off of this map right here, right? And the factors that Tim was talking about, like if they just made it dynamic instead of flat, and like I don't want the 15-minute, I don't want the federal minimum wage at all, but if they did it, I think this would be the best way to do it.
I do agree. I think a dynamic federal minimum wage is like the ultimate compromise that will probably never happen. But it's too good of an idea. Man. It's too good of an idea. Like it's like no one will get it. So something else, this is where politics come into play, and it sucks. But so I'm reading Obama's book right now. I actually really recommend it if you guys get the chance. And it offers some insights on and he's brutally honest in this thing. He's already won his battles. You know what I mean? He can speak quite frank on things. And one of them is that, when he was in office, even on bipartisan issues, there was still a massive opposition from Republicans because basically the mentality of Mitch McConnell, a quote is the reality is partisanship, bipartisanship means that a compromise has been met, obviously, but in politics that means it's okay for us not to be the majority party because the Democrats are doing so well. So and vice versa, Democrats will do that to Republicans as well.
You don't want to give them wins. I mean, that's what Nancy Pelosi was doing for the last year. A lot of the holdups on the
she learned. Hey, she learned from the best, man.
I'm not here to do the chicken and the egg thing. I mean, it is politics.
No, I agree, but that's exactly what It's a tried and true method that minority parties will roll with now, and so it's just too good of an idea, man. That federal minimum wage being dynamic is too good.
A little complicated for the people in Alabama. Just kidding. I love you guys. Donate to the show. Click like and subscribe. All right.
So I wanted to finish up with one thought on this.
Go ahead.
The idea in my opinion, the idea for minimum wage is that you're not, and Chris kind of mentioned this, you're not taking advantage of the employee base, right? And so think of it from a standpoint of if as a business owner, the only, you get the profit off of exploiting somebody's work and paying them less than what would be available for a living wage, right? So why should you profit off of that? Why should you be able to? And I'm not saying I fully agree with this, but this is kind of the mentality that I've heard. For your business to be profitable, you have to exploit labor. You have to pay people less than
in contractual agreements with individuals.
You have to pay people less than what they need to survive.
And the individual knows that going into it,
so that you can profit off of it, right?
Yes.
So that's the kind of the crux behind it is you're exploiting people to put money in your own pocket. That's the thought behind it. I'm not saying I 100% agree, but that's the other side. That is that's the yin to your yang of it's a free market. Well, that's the socialist side of it saying it needs to be a lot more fair in what wages are paid. I'm somewhere in the middle. I want it to be as free of a market as possible with rails on the side that keeps either group from having too much power. Yeah.
All right. One last thing, and then we can go on to the next topic. That is, so I found an inflation calculator because I was thinking about being super cheeky, and then I got real depressed. So first, I found out when the Fight for 15 movement officially kicked off. It was back in 2012. So $15 in 2012 is $16.91 now. So it's the fight for $16.91. But what was really depressing about that is when you bump that up 4 years, it barely changes.
So go back to when I was making.
Oh yeah. What?
Go back to when our current minimum wage is put in place, which I don't know the year, but I can say for sure that when I was 16, so 22 years ago.
98?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, that's about right.
750?
I was making $7.50.
Nan.
What happened? 1998, boy. Type in 1998.
Oh, I just abbreviated it. Good God, this apple juice. All right. That's $11.91, sir.
Yeah. So the cost of living has gone up significantly, but minimum wage is not.
Hey, you know what? Let's tell those 500,000 people who are making those 750 jobs that they're not going to have a job anymore because we're raising the minimum wage.
I don't think most of the jobs will go away.
They'll still have a job. It'll just pay more.
Well, what if it's not worth more?
They'll find a new job that it's not a zero sum. It's not like there's going to be X amount of less jobs. It's just,
but there's limited resources.
I mean, they'll just all end up working for Target, I guess.
I'm just being cheeky. All right,
maybe GameStop is hiring.
I'm sure GameStop. Oh wait, really, really tragic.
GameStop's hiring.
You just say like tragic. It's a tragedy. I was reading that like AMC was unaware that this was going on. Someone got fired today. AMC didn't know this was going to happen. Like they weren't being privy to it. And so they saw their stocks go up and like, shit, man, we're really broke because of the pandemic. So they sold 4 hours before it like quadrupled. And so they made $300 million off of their stocks when they could have made over $1 billion if they just held for like 3 hours.
Jeez.
Someone got fired. Someone really got fired. This isn't one of those things that you can predict.
Yeah, it's fair.
True. Okay, so the next topic, I don't know. We'll see how we do with it. How's everybody doing with getting COVID vaccine? I wonder if anybody in the audience has gotten one. You guys know anybody that's gotten the vaccine?
I do know a lot of people. One of my staff members is getting it this week because she still works at a residential facility. But
there you go. Yep.
I might be able to get my place to qualify for it, but if I do, I'm stretching it, and I don't want to finesse and take away vaccine slots from somebody else who really needs the vaccine. So
I've had some grandparents get it, but yeah, not any. I'm not anyone my age. My sister, she's a nurse. She's getting it or gotten it.
I am hearing from a lot of people good idea to take a day off of work. Super tired after the vaccine.
Really?
Yeah, just super tired. Talking to my one of my colleagues earlier today, different organization. She was like, "Yeah, I got it, and I passed out at 5." She's like, "Best sleep of my life. Best sleep of my life." She's like, "I don't regret it at all." But laid down at 5 o'clock and woke up the next morning. It was like, wow.
People get nervous about that. They're like, "I'm getting sick from it. I'm having side effects." Why the hell? Your body is creating antibodies.
Yeah,
that's how vaccines work. Your body is pissed that this thing is in your body. So it's like, I'm sick. You're not really sick. Your body thinks you're sick, and it creates antibodies. That's how it works. You're kind of supposed to feel like shit.
My staff member told me that one thing that I think also it's worth keeping in mind. She already had COVID, and so when she gets it, she's actually gonna have to probably take a day or two off because since your body already has antibodies, it'll actually attack the vaccine and then build more antibodies, but like your body will make itself sick. And that's what her doctor is sharing with her. So like for people who've already had COVID, they should still get the vaccine, but they might actually get like pretty sick from taking it because their body goes into like super like hardcore response because their body's like, I'm ready for
not that again.
Like we're ready now. And then like just going to war. So
that's funny.
No, I didn't know that, but I think Biden's 100 million vaccines 100-day plan is pretty viable. One thing, the mixed reports that like Dr. Fauci. What?
I think he bumped it up to 150 million.
Oh, nice. Yeah, it's very realistic. But also for what it's worth, incorrect statement to say that Trump had no plan ready. That was
all right, here it is, man. We're bipartisan. All of this podcast. This is what happens when there's a boring guy in office.
I know. But one thing that's worth noting is so Dr. Fauci was like, well, no, that's wrong. It wasn't like there was like nothing in place. One fair thing is that Biden is putting in a higher level of like focus on this. He is having like an actual like staff team dedicated only to this versus before it was like HHS dual rolling people. And for what it's worth, that's a better response, but it doesn't invalidate the first response. It's just this is probably a little bit better. But yeah, that's
okay. All right. Well, I mean, you took most of the wind out of my sails, so it's mostly conversational from here on out. But
so guys, well, thanks for showing up for the podcast. We'll
yeah, that's it. Thanks for watching, everybody. We're done now.
Thanks for watching. We all agree. I guess I'm a Republican now.
Yeah, exactly. Welcome, brother. There's guns and Bibles. You'll be receiving yours shortly.
Oh, sweet. I can't wait for my Republican starter kit.
Yeah, it's all Tim's neighbors. They make them by hand, and then they give the proceeds to charities because they're nice Republicans. Anyways,
Christian neighborhood church charities.
That's right.
Yeah.
So here's the graph. So I was going to hit on it really hard because the new press secretary, and I will learn her name. What is her name? Psaki? Jen Psaki?
She's from Connecticut.
Is she? Oh,
yeah, well, she is.
Represent, I guess. There was a statement she made, and I was like super like fired up and ready to come out swinging because she said she made the statement that the average dispersal rate before Biden came into office was 500 million, and as you can see this chart, right, you can see I can't reach that far up. Green screens are only so limited, but you can see Biden's inauguration there, and everything before that is the ramp up of distribution. And I thought it was just so disingenuous of her to say the average was 500,000 and we're ramping it up to 1 million. When on Joe Biden's inauguration day, they gave out over 1.4 million vaccinations.
Yeah,
they're ramped up.
It's an unfair.
I mean, you can see in that chart though that the difference that almost every bar before his inauguration is below the 1 million line. And every bar after his inauguration is above the 1 million line.
Don't make me come smack you.
That would have happened anyways. It's like I gotta be.
All of this was Trump. This is all Trump.
Well, it's not just Trump. It's just the federal government. It's just federal. And the one thing that I heard that Biden is doing that is more than Trump, and I think this is fair, is Trump was relying more on states to kind of like do their rollout. So certain states that have certain states like Connecticut has their shit together. We're ahead of the game. We've been ahead of the game the whole time because we have a really good HHS in Connecticut. We have really good like people. We've been at the head of this. Other states that don't have their shit together, like here's the reality: red states that don't have funding for this type of stuff, they've been kind of left in the dirt in the dust. So one thing that Biden's doing is really making a very, very, very like significant federal plan and rollout procedure, like bringing like instead of National Guard, bringing like military rollouts and whatnot. The catch is, Fig's famous. Oh my gosh, Fig, don't walk on the computer. The things that's sorry, I'm distracted, but the rollout would have happened anyways. The only difference that we're gonna see is like, the reality is maybe Trump would have hit 150 million people in 100 days, but at the end of the day, like, it's just.
Hey, let me just say this, man. I mean, like, if he is improving it, good. Good for him.
Yeah,
I got no problems with it.
You can't shit on Trump for this.
The only thing I have a problem with is dumping on the guy for no reason. Like, I mean, Trump's bad enough without dumping on his COVID policy, I guess.
Shit on Trump
unless it deserves to be dumped on.
Like, dunk on Trump when it comes to, like, if he asks, like, if does the flu vaccine kill COVID? Dunk on him for that, right? Like, he's an idiot. Dunk on him for the Capitol insurrection. But, like,
right, all that stuff. Just
yeah.
Be focused.
It's just one of those things that
I had a similar data thing to what you did. It shows it a little bit differently, but so here's inauguration day.
Different resolution.
No, well, yours was cumulative, stacked on top of daily. This is just daily, but it's a line chart instead of a bar chart.
I don't think mine was cumulative.
Yours had a cumulative bar, I believe, along with a bar chart behind it. But regardless, yours showed more information. This just shows it a different way. Mm-hmm. But I thought it was interesting that, since the first day after inauguration, the daily amount has dropped significantly too, right? And so I'm 100% in agreement that the rollout is in process, and any statement that says so-and-so did so good after or before or whatever, to me, doesn't hold a whole lot of water.
Yeah. I mean, news just in: partisan press secretaries are going to be partisan.
But I do think that Trump's plan he did have a plan. I mean, the truth is, the plan to say somebody else deal with it is a plan, right? So it's okay.
That's even a Republican plan, right? That's a conservative, small government. States take care of it. Generally, conservative, let's say, not Republican.
Yeah. So, I mean, and so it kind of makes sense. Now, I think that for something this important, it would have been very prudent, and I'm happy that Biden's taken it a different direction to have federal guidance, more strict federal guidance. I'm not saying to go in and mandate how states have to do it, but give them a playbook, right? And if you read a lot of these,
they have a playbook. Biden's setting up like distribution facilities and stuff like that. Like
there was not a distribution playbook. Like, here's how you set this up. Here's how you go about doing it. Here's what you need to do to get this distributed from the Trump campaign, from the Trump office. It didn't exist. The states were using stuff from like the World Health Organization and other stuff because CDC didn't put that out from what I was reading. The U.S. government didn't put out these types of things. They basically said, here's your vaccines. You guys are responsible for putting a plan together. And then the states would say, cool, how many vaccines am I getting? And to rightly so, the CDC wasn't able to answer that in some cases, right? I mean, they didn't know. But there wasn't like an instruction manual. They basically gave you a box of IKEA parts and said, put it together. And that's an exaggeration, right? But it gets the idea across. So what Biden's doing is coming in and giving you the manual. And late in Trump's presidency, he finally started putting out guidances for the states. And really late, they finally passed funding for the states to be able to do these vaccine rollouts. But what was the date? It was in January, I think. It was literally like a week, or maybe it was late December, but it was only a couple weeks before Biden transitioned. The states never got any federal funding to do the vaccine rollout. It was all up to them to fund it themselves. And so wealthy states were able to do a little better than poor states, or poor states that plan better or whatever. But and that all resulted in a pretty big disparity between how states were rolling out their vaccines. And so this data is about a week old at this point, but it shows that some states were getting 10% of their population almost vaccinated, whereas other states were only able to get 2 to 3%. And this is what happens when you leave it up to the state. You get massive disparity. Whereas if you had a federal guideline, federal funding, you had these things put in place, you had a plan that involved information, not a plan that said do it yourself, that was provided to the states, you might have been able to take some of the skills that the Alaskan, West Virginia, North Dakota, South Dakota, New Mexico members had and put that and taught how these other states how to do it right.
I don't see much of a. What's the gap there, right? I don't think it's money. Alaska is not a wealthy state. I'm kind of curious right now. Right? I mean, you could say like all of those top ones are red states, but there's a mix on the bottom. I'm not going to say that the Republican states are doing it better, although apparently New Mexico went blue last time, I believe, right?
Well, there's a couple things that could make this be disparaging a little bit, and that is that the amount of vaccines that a state got did have to do with the number of people that live there that were like over 65.
Right, but that's already proportional. This is percent, so that shouldn't matter.
It's not proportional. Florida got more. This is per 100 people, not per 100 people that were eligible.
Yeah, that's administered. You're talking about received.
Yeah, so exactly. But if you got more, if you had more population that was eligible, then you should have a higher. So I think there's some.
Oh, right. Florida's got all sorts of old people.
Yeah, Florida would then, you would imagine Florida should be in the top there if that was really the main driver, right? It's a part of it, but it's not the thing. So it's probably money, it's probably preparation, it's probably the skill of the people they have working there. But that's the point: is you should have been able to take these skills, this information, put together a plan, distributed it to every state, so they all had the best information available. They still can be responsible for administering it, but you need to give them the information, you need to give them the funding, you need to give them the ability to do it. And that wasn't done.
Well, I mean, that's kind of debatable. I mean, as somebody who believes states should be responsible for themselves, they should be responsible for themselves. And like you'll notice I'll throw a little jab in here, Chris. Like, I'm not complaining that the federal government's discriminating against Republicans because their policy disparately affects them. Actually, apparently it doesn't from that chart. All right, I'll shut up then. I was thinking before that when our premise was the Republicans. Yeah, I'm wrong. When the Republican states were like, "Oh, it's the poor states that are not doing well," it's like all the deep South red states not doing well. But it was like North and South Dakota in the top two. So I'll just shut up.
Yeah, we're trying to help you guys out. We're trying to help the Reds. we're trying to help, because Biden's a president for all people.
Yeah, yeah.
For what it's worth, though, I mean, it's like, I guess just to circle back, you can't, people were going to be getting vaccinated regardless. It's like, all right, so I saw this other viral freaking Facebook thing coming out. It's like already, and it was it was like day 2 of Biden's presidency. And on day 3, there's been this many jobs lost, and it's like, all right, shut up. He's been president for 2 days. And the same applies for accepting credit. You can't accept credit for those who've already been vaccinated up until really this week. I mean, things will start changing now. We'll start being able to see the impacts of Biden's policies and with vaccines in the incoming weeks. But on other things, there's nothing you can even pinpoint Biden to as of right now. There's absolutely
no, of course not. No, all of those things are trolling. I almost guarantee it, man.
They're hilarious.
It's not healthy for the country. It's good for a chuckle for a little bit, but then Civil War's coming up. So,
but dude, the boomers are sharing this on
Oh, I know.
They believe it. They really, you think it's a joke, but then you go on their Facebook profile picture because that's what we do now, and we used to see Trump flags up the ass. Then I'm like, wow, they really believe this. They definitely are not just sharing this to troll. It's scary.
Yeah. So I have some theories about why the QAnon conspiracy theory was able to convince such a massive portion of the country.
Let's hear it.
It has to do with, let's see if you guys agree with this. I think that, right, so presidential elections are kind of weird in that it's binary, right? And so you have one choice or the other, right? So you have the primaries, right? And then out of the primaries, you have a whole bunch of boring schlebs and you pick one of them. And then it becomes binary, right? And so then you're forced with the situation where psychologically you have to support this one guy who's super rude and super out there and super weird, right? Donald Trump, but he's your guy. And on top of that, he puts out policies that you like. So it's so the entire Republican Party is psychologically behind this particular person because it's binary and he is the guy that you need to support, especially in the second election when there's not even a primary. That's your guy. And then when he starts doing weird stuff, there's nowhere for you like psychologically to go, right? Because we'd like to pretend that everybody in the country is we're all super deeply principled people that are like, oh no, he crossed my threshold. Now I want the Democrats to win. Like that doesn't happen. So what's been going on, I think, is that people have been allowed, sort of like led into psychosis because Trump is ridiculous and he's the person, right? There was you couldn't leave him to go with someone else. Like, well, yeah, he's ridiculous. Never mind. We're going to go with Pence instead, which is what would have happened if there was a primary at every election, maybe. Do you agree with that? Make any sense?
I do think it makes a lot of sense. I do believe Trump put people in a level of psychosis. I mean, the reality is like the benchmark of like, decency has totally changed, like thrown out the window. Like the reality is and with that, a lot of other things have been pushed. The needle's been pushed. So yeah, QAnon was able to like build up a higher level of legitimacy than they should have because they were riding the wave of like,
right. They were sort of like they sort of like wedged themselves into the cognitive dissonance that was forming around Trump because he was it was like he was the guy, and people had to stretch a little bit further and further to like hold on to that. Like, no, he's still fine, he's still okay. I know he's ridiculous, and then like eventually when it gets to election fraud, you're like, well, and that's not necessarily what QAnon was. It was more than that. But like when it gets to things like that, you're like, well, I already don't trust the mainstream media. I don't trust all these other sources. They're in on it, Like, why shouldn't this be true? And at that point, you're like, you're screwed,
Well, and
lack of critical thinking. They're kind of the willingness to believe in something based on faith rather than fact, right? Not question, like the inability to self-evaluate and look at why or you got to where you're at or why you're thinking what you do, right? And just not being able to admit you made a mistake. Like all these things combined are why it happened.
So many different factors.
Right.
Because it was like, and I say but it was like a quarter of the country fully still believe, I think, that the election was stolen.
Most of them probably make minimum wage.
Oh, stop it.
That's rude. I was just joking if you're a believer in...
We're going to run for office, and all of our opponents are just going to play this show on a loop.
I was saying to Carol, like, I think, like, Nate, I can see you running for state office one day. This wouldn't hurt you at all because you'll run, like, a Republican district and, like, like, all you got to do is get through the primary. For me, like, Democrats are definitely not as kind to each other as Republicans are. Like, you guys will like be like, oh, okay, Rand Paul, slap on the wrist. Like Democrats will like be like that dude from oh my gosh, you remember like senator from really respected dude, senator from Minnesota, like one claim against them out. Elizabeth Etsy in Connecticut, like she fucked up by not reporting like something at the right time or whatever, and wasn't even involved in like a scandal, but it was their staffers fired, like out of Congress. Like this podcast will come back to bite me, like, and I'll just be like, whatever. We'll be
here for you, dog. What'd be crazy is like we'll come out to defend you and be like, look, that right wing maniac is defending him. Now he's really bad.
Well, what we'll do is I'll just have like a whole like play like movie roll of like stuff Trump has done. I'm like, all right, well if you can vote for Trump, like I'll just have picture like movie roles of like Capitol insurrections. I'll be like, well, all I said was like they were white trash, so I think I can get by this. So no, I some funny stuff. You'll be fine. This podcast will never hurt you if you run for state Republican office.
To get onto back to the vaccine thing, I think the biggest limiting factor for how many people are going to get vaccinated in the next 100 days isn't the plan. That's going to help if we had the supply, but I think the supply is going to be the limiting factor.
Yeah.
We have a bit of a stock right now because they haven't everything that we've been getting over the last month and a half as we've been developing this rollout plan and getting the rollout plan has been building up, and we haven't just mass distributed it. They're trying to get it to the people that need it, and that takes a little more time than just putting it in any shoulder that walks by.
Yeah, instead of just throwing a box out the door and say, go stick yourselves.
Right. So it takes a little bit of time. You obviously aren't going to be able to, as soon as the box shows up, empty it to the right people, right? It takes a little time to organize that. But, we're not seeing how we're going to get all the vaccines we need right now. I mean, the manufacturing ramp up hasn't been as fast as Pfizer and Moderna have wanted it to be. We have the potential of a couple other vaccine manufacturers coming in the next month or two. Johnson & Johnson, I think, has one coming soon, and Novavax, I think, has one potentially coming soon. So we have to see how their phase 3 trial data comes and if they get approved. But until they get approved, there's a very good chance the limiting factor isn't going to have anything to do with the plan. It's going to have to do with availability of vaccine. And one thing you have to think about is Moderna and Pfizer are not making vaccines for the U.S. They're making vaccines for the world. And the Trump campaign, in my opinion, did a pretty good job of going out and buying these vaccines before they were available, right?
Yeah.
While they were being
developed. Reading a couple news stories about that.
But many, many other countries did the same thing, and some did it better, right? So some have a larger supply for their population than we do. Part of it is they have a smaller population, so maybe it's easier to go out and buy 20 million if you only have 50 million people in your country.
Yeah,
right?
I hear Israel's doing really well.
Yeah, so here's the vaccine bases by
Russia was vaccinating themselves back in last year.
Yeah, but what's up? They got 0.7 people per 100. I guess you have to probably kiss Putin's finger first before you can get it.
No, I think it's definitely just a fake vaccine.
Or you're nervous. You're like, is that a vaccine or is that poison?
Oh yeah, is it poison?
You just killed 0.7% of the population.
Yeah, so no, they're actually up to 50%, but they're all dead, so we can only count the live ones.
Yeah, I mean, herd immunity, boys.
You cannot spread disease if you're dead.
Well, UK's doing better than us, as an example. We're not doing too bad, fourth, considering we're by far the largest population out of the people above us, I would say. I don't know for sure what all the populations are. I'm guessing we're by far the largest though, out of those three.
For what it's worth, one thing I just want to touch on, I know conservatives way more than those on the left. And I'm not saying this as I got you, but because just no one knew enough in the beginning of this. It's so easy to say in hindsight, but I know there was this big push, all right, let's just go out and get it, herd immunity, whatever, we'll survive. But the scary thing is it does seem that, after 6 months, you can re-catch the coronavirus, same strand. So that's the shitty thing. It does seem you can. Yeah, it's been pretty much confirmed. So
that's why I bought COVID vaccine stock.
Did you really?
Oh yeah.
Dude, I didn't even know that
I bought it back in August. A lot, and I've sold some since, but I'm rebuying back into because this isn't going away, right? This is going to be like the flu vaccine, where you get the flu vaccine every year, you get the COVID vaccine every year, maybe twice a year. Who knows, right?
I think once we're good, we're good. I think the vaccine will hold through, but the antibodies. But yeah, it seems like
they go away.
The normal ones go away. Well, the ones I guess we just don't know enough. I'm not a doctor, so I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe they just dissolve after a year. That would suck. Can you imagine every year?
They've tested the people that have been getting the vaccines in the trials, and their antibodies fade over time, just like they do if you had been infected.
So boost your shots. So I imagine getting the vaccine is going to be a little bit more of a civic duty than it was before, right? Before everybody's like, go get your flu vaccine, and now it's going to be like, go get your flu vaccine.
I've never gotten a flu vaccine. I've been one of those sinners.
I used to get it. They used to jab it in the Navy all the time with everything. They actually had a nasal vaccine when I was in the military. It was just like done. I took my flu vaccine. I don't know why we can't just do that.
Yeah, I'm gonna get my flu vaccine this year.
It's a little late, bro.
A little late.
No, I'm all right. I think the mask is protecting me from the flu too.
That's right. Yeah,
I think
a lot of the conspiracy theories are like, where did all the what is it? The bronchitis? Not bronchitis. The tuberculosis. Where did all the tuberculosis go? It's like
you're fucking stupid.
Yeah, it's like okay, bro.
Masks, like the masks stop all of it, actually.
And on top of that, we're still getting record sick here. So I guess bury your head in the sand, people. I don't know.
By the end of like next year, we're all gonna look like heroin addicts. We're gonna have like a bunch of like needle marks just from all of our vaccines. Like,
I have a hard time macking on the all of them, like QAnon, anybody who's in a conspiracy theory, because I have my own persecution complex being on the right, where like for example, everybody thinks the entire Republican Party is racist. So I'm like, okay, well, half the country thinks that, and that's wrong. So what conspiracy theory is out there that everybody thinks is wrong that might actually be true? So like I always try to keep a way open mind about it, which makes me open mind to a lot of really weird things. But
I'm not gonna lie. I think the only conspiracy theory I've been buying into recently, like, and it's not like I'm not like out here like about to like put a flag on my front porch and be like, but like I do think the Capitol was an inside job. I do think there was like some inside energy.
Did you hear anything about that? Like
there's been stuff
how about that button thing? Did the button thing pan out?
I haven't followed that story on that, but there's been a few other weird things. Like I know like just like financial backers of a lot of the groups that were the main, because the reality is like the insurrection was a coalition of already existing groups of like pro-Trump, pro whatever, and like those were funded by like some of his cabinet members, but like that's not necessarily that's not enough to confirm a conspiracy theory. It's just like, oh yeah, a bunch of these like pro-Trump groups that happen to get funding by like Trump's bros just went overboard. That's how you can like non-conspiracy it.
Well, that's what I'll say, obviously.
Yeah. So
until there's evidence, like if there's enough evidence to go to a trial, and then they go to discovery where they scrape everybody's text messages and says, all right, you give $500K to that group, $500K to that group. We're going to get some of these patriots into the Capitol so they can go hang Nancy Pelosi.
yeah. That's and Pence apparently. Can you imagine being Mike Pence right now? Like, what the fuck? Like, what do you do? Like,
I heard he's couch surfing.
Why was Mike? No, is he? Oh, because the protect against death threats?
No, I just apparently he didn't make any plans after the White not the White House, whatever.
He doesn't have a house in Indiana anymore.
He's couch surfing with people there. I don't like. Apparently, he doesn't have a house ready or something. I don't know if it was like. Well, I mean, because the housing market's crazy. I can understand that, but
Mike Pence is homeless couch surfing after being booted from the.
Does it say why? Because I didn't go into the
article. Oh, yeah, and is putting off buying a new property over safety concerns after MAGA mob called for him to be hanged.
Yep.
And that's the Daily Mail, which is conservative.
Daily Mail? Is it?
Is it the Daily Mail conservative or...
Wait, that's a UK thing? No, that's super left-wing.
Oh, you're right. That's UK. So, wow, yeah, that sucks. I mean, poor dude. Like, I mean, obviously he has cash money. Like, he's a pension. Like, he's not poor. He's couch surfing by choice, but... Yeah, like I mean, he's set for life, dude. He's making like $200K for the rest of our lives.
He can stay at my house. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm pretty sure.
Sure he's not working at my house.
Having a
Mike
VP in your house.
I'd open my door to a lot of people, but not Mike Pence. He just I don't know.
What?
I would. I think it'd be an awesome conversations, man.
He needs beauty sleep so he can push forward with conversion therapy.
Well, that's what's fucked up about Mike Pence. Like, let's be real. Like, he was a big, conversion therapy. Like, that's pretty scary. Like, he's ready for, shocking he's like, let me just electrocute the gay away. Like, come on, dude. Like,
I remember that being somewhat debunked. That was one of those things that was getting talked about.
It was
a misunderstanding where it was like, just because you're opposed to removing something doesn't mean you're in favor of it happening type of thing. Like, one of those that always happens. But I'm maybe talking out my ass. I don't know if he was.
No, we'll look into it. We can touch base on that for next week. But Mike Pence is an interesting figure.
He's kind of
most likely 2024 like Republican frontrunner. Like I think he has the best chance, unless you have some other. I mean, Howley's out. Ted Cruz will try, but he won't. He's not electable. He's like your Bernie at this point. Like he wouldn't get moderates.
I don't know. We'll see how that shakes out. When's he up for re-election? Do you know?
I think he just went through a re-election, so not for a hot second.
Oh, that's right. He did. So he'll be okay. People forget about everything, man. Everything. He has plenty of time to remake his image. And I'm not just saying that because he's a Republican or anything. Like everybody forgets about absolutely everything that people do.
Yeah.
In politics, we have a really short memory.
For what it's worth, though, like he was really close. Like he almost lost to Beto. Like I think Texas is going blue.
Yeah, we'll see.
Enough to flip a Senate seat, not enough to ever run a presidential blue. Unless you had a blue candidate from Texas, then Texas would be like, hell yeah, it's our guy.
Maybe if he was like I don't know. Maybe I'm not a strategist, so.
Yeah, if a rising star pops out of Texas out of nowhere and ends up like another Beto, but like more like electable,
not cringy.
Beto was weird. Yeah, Beto was a weird dude. Yeah, if we get Chuck Norris out of Texas, he'd become the president. So
maybe. Okay. All right. I think that's we're gonna end a couple minutes early here tonight, unless there's any objections. I think next week we're planning on doing a full depth. We're gonna go full in depth on climate change. I think it's gonna be a lot of fun. I got a lot of stuff spooled up. If you haven't engaged in a climate change debate before, there's going to be a lot of stuff that you haven't heard before. There's a lot of good information with this stuff, and I'm kind of excited for it. So
I'm excited. All right. Have a good night, guys.
Peace out. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and sharing is the best thing because we need to start.
Sharing is caring.
Yeah, sharing is caring. Not in this case. Sharing is condemning people to doom and gloom. So, thanks for watching, everybody. Good night.
Peace out.